Hey Village, on this episode, we have a guest with us tonight. We'll be discussing outside influences on the development of manhood. That and more after a few words about our sponsor. Hey guys, do you have a podcast you feel the world should hear? I did, and I used Anchor. Anchor is one of the easiest platforms for podcasting. Anchor is a free service, and it allows you to create and edit your podcast from your phone or your computer. Are you interested in distribution? Of course you are. After all, it's a podcast. Well, Anchor will distribute your podcast for you to other platforms, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and others. You're also able to pick up sponsors and receive monetary support for your podcast. Ready to get started? Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm. Let's get started.
Men have some crazy ideas about being a man. Fighting, beating up on somebody, that makes you a man, right? Screwing all the broads and making babies, that makes you a man, big man.
Hey, Village. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we'll be discussing outside influences on the development of manhood. That clip you just heard after the commercial came from a scene in the 1974 movie Claudine, starring the most fabulous Diane Carroll and James Earl Jones. In that description of a man, does that still hold true for today? Do we think it's evolved? I think so. I think it's evolved. Is society the real parent? Do they get to determine who or what a man shall or should or shall be? Does society get to decide? That's some of the questions I'll be asking our guest tonight. And with that being said, let me introduce my guest. Welcome, Darian. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Good evening, everyone. Again, this is Darian, and very, 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 very excited to be a part of my other mother's podcast. A very, very interesting subject that she brought to my attention, and very happy and very excited to give my insight.
Good. Darian, I'm glad you joined us tonight. We're going to be discussing outside influences on manhood and the development and his transitions. And I'm going to go ahead and get right into this interview. Tell us a little about yourself, Darian. Some backstory, family dynamics, a little bit about yourself.
My whole family is born and raised here in Cincinnati, Ohio. One of the few that didn't graduate from Withrow High School. I graduated from Mount Healthy, 35, with 3 beautiful and very interesting kids. And I'm a lupus patient, which has taken my life up and down some very, very interesting hurdles and has altered my idea and thoughts of what a man is and what a man should be.
Wow. Then that leads me to, actually, I'm going to jump ahead because you mentioned that you have lupus.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
I was going to talk about one of the challenges in your life, if you had any challenges that may have tested, or altered the man that you made yourself to be. How has it changed you?
My upbringing was, kind of rough. All my male influences were tough guys and go getters, guys that didn't make any excuses. If something needed to be done around the house, it got done one way, shape or another. And that was my idea of what a man should be, because that's all that I saw. So being diagnosed with this illness, and lupus is, for those who don't know, lupus is an autoimmune disease. So it's basically the body attacking itself and its major organs, and it's doing a number on my kidneys. And because of that, I'm not able to do what I think a man should do, as far as like being that provider, um, being that protector, somebody that I feel like my family can really depend on and rely on. I've actually had to be the one relying and depending on others. Some days I have the energy to jump hurdles and run a couple of miles. Some days I can barely wash myself, so it's altered a lot. It's altered a lot. It's really made me really reevaluate that question that you asked.
That would be really rough on an average person, you know? And
Definitely.
what does it what does it do to your man?
Some days I don't feel like one. And then it also has it's made me realize that what I thought weren't man like tendencies, it's actually fine. I've over the last couple of years have really found myself being a little more sensitive to certain subjects, really overall, just being more sensitive. I felt like a man had to display this tough exterior. I'm not going to let another man, or anybody for that matter, disrespect me in any way, shape, or form. And it has taught me to really, you know, being a man sometimes is really turning around, not giving not giving certain situations that energy.
Understand?
We walk around with the tough, that tough, that macho man, kind of mentality, where we
Mm-hmm.
grew the neighborhood we grew up in, a lot of times when, you were at work, me and your oldest son, that's my best friend. Me and him were, out and about. And I know a lot of times we've had conversations about that a lot, how we felt like that's how we had to be to really survive that environment. And the older we get, the more we realize, I think, having kids had a lot to deal with that as well, too, because you can't be tough with them 24/7. You have to show sensitivity. You have to, show different levels of emotion. You can't always be just one way. And it wasn't until I got sick that I really came to that realization. So growing up, my male influences were very dominant males, providers, go getters, made no excuses. Something needed to be done, they got it done. You know, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So that's what I thought I had to be when I became a man, especially when I started having a family of my own, was I have to provide at all costs, no excuses. So in 2015, when I was diagnosed, um, really changed my, outlook. I'm not healthy enough to be the provider, be the protector that I want to be. Sometimes I need my family to provide for me, protect me, because I have those weak moments. And it opened my eyes to a lot. It's okay for a man to show emotion other than anger, um, to be, a little more sensitive, and it's okay. We hear a lot. Sensitivity is a female trait, and being an adult, I don't understand that logic anymore. I feel like a man should be able to display all levels of emotion and still be considered a man at the end of the day. This is a big eye opener, long story short.
It sounds like it. It sounds like it. You mentioned you have children. Would you mind sharing the gender of your children?
Two boys, one girl. Aiden is 11, and the twins, one boy, one girl, they both are 9. They will be 10 next month.
Oh, fun years. I call it the fun years because that's when they're developing their little personalities, starting to become who they're going to become. You said your diagnosis changed the man you are. So how will it change how you raise your sons?
It has changed how I raised my sons. I thought that I had to be tough. I wanted them to have that tough exterior that I had growing up. But along with, the illness, it's it's society. Society has changed. It's not like how it was me early to late 90s when I was around Aiden's age, growing up.
Right.
Um, it's more of me just introducing different things to him, letting him find what it is that he likes, and just trying to guide. I add a little bit of me, but I let him come into his own and accept whatever it is I get. When he was, I vividly remember when he was like 5 or 6 years old, I just thought that he was a little more sensitive than most kids were.
Mm-hmm.
Don't ask me what the average level of sensitivity is for a child. I don't know.
Well,
It was just it was just my whole idea of what a man should be. And I felt,
your
well, the
idea
earlier I start,
or society's idea? That your idea or society talking?
I think it's a combination of both.
Hmm.
I think it's a combination of both. Society played a huge part in what I thought I needed to become. And then once I got rid of that notion, it was more of, okay, here's what society is going to expect, but you don't fall into that trap. You become your own, and you let society come into what it is that you doing. You don't follow the trend. You become the trend. Whatever it is you're comfortable with, regardless of what that is, you're still my son.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to love you no more or no less. Whatever you decide to do with your life, you have my full support as long as it's something positive.
I agree.
And um, you know, you're not a real man if you don't work with your hands. Says who? Says who?
Please tell
You,
me.
you know, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, two of the brightest minds. They fixed computers and did stuff with electronics. Not saying anything less or more about a man that goes out to the construction site.
Hmm. That's right.
He's still a man. That's just the path that he chose to provide for his family. Now, these guys ended up being inventors. So I show my babies both. You can go this route and you can be successful. Don't chase the money, chase the dream. Whatever it is you decide that you want to do with your life, as long as you're doing something positive. I think Daddy did enough negative stuff in his life to where you don't have to, go that route. Having a police record does not make you a better man than anybody. As a matter of fact, that's something that you shouldn't strive for. That was society. That was society teaching me growing up. Oh, you got to catch a case before you become a, you know what I mean? And
I do.
I'm I'm glad I'm over that.
I am too. It sounds like major growth. Major growth. I hear a little bit of a combination of a lot of things. You've gone through your diagnosis. You've gone through a rough childhood. Um, your mom played a pivotal part in you growing up.
Yes.
So, what does a mother's role mean to you? And what about your feelings towards your mother and her helping you into your transition?
It took a while for me to first accept my mother for who she is, and then accepting her version of what a man should be, how a man should go about, certain things. I was listening to the podcast you did with Q, and there's a lot that I agreed with, and a lot that I understand his confusion about. Well, I wonder what type of man I would be if my dad was, involved.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my mom had me young. She was 17 when I was born, and so was my father. So a lot of my childhood was us kind of helping each other in a sense. She's still growing and becoming a woman.
I totally agree.
At the same time, trying to raise a boy to become the best man that he can be.
Was your father in the home?
My father was not in the house. I knew my father. I knew exactly where my father was, but
Mm-hmm.
um to be totally honest with you, I I can remember maybe two or three situations with my dad vividly before I turned six. Before I turned six, it's a blur, really.
Mm-hmm.
After I turned six, I can give you, a bunch of stories regarding my dad. He was there, but he wasn't present. Does that make sense?
It does. It very much makes sense.
My
You
mom
have
got
to put in work to be present.
definitely, definitely. My mom got married to my sister's dad. Um, when right before I turned five, right before I turned five. Um, and that was another one of those tough guys that I spoke about earlier. And
So another one of your examples, what was, did you consider him a mentor?
no, not until I got older. There was a lot of resentment with him
Uh-huh.
because I was, I've never said this, I was really jealous of my sister. My sister is growing up with both parents in the household. I just got my mama, and I got this guy, now mind you, this is a 6 year old's train of thought. I got this guy trying to act like my dad. I don't respect him because he's not my dad. I want my daddy
And
there.
at 6, at 6, you knew you didn't have the respect that of him being your stepfather because of the jealousy?
Oh, definitely, definitely, definitely. I'm watching. Um, we didn't move to Skyline until I was like seven. So for the first, 6.5 years of my life, I'm living in Madisonville at my grandmother's house. So when I go outside, I got one of my good friends a couple of houses down, Brandon. He lives with his biological father. His mother's not in the house. He lives with his biological father. His next door neighbors, Brian and Adam and Jacob, their mother unfortunately passed away. The father stepped up. They're living with their biological father. 3, 4 houses down, my other good friend Will, he lives with both parents. Everybody that's around me growing up the first 6.5 years of my life, they have both parents or they have their father. So I'm looking around like, well, what the hell did I do? Or what didn't I do? Why is my dad not with my mom? And then when I'm not talking to anybody about this, I'm just having these thoughts in my head. And when I'm coming to that realization of why they're not together, she's introducing me to this guy. Now she's welcoming a new baby in the world, and she gets the experience of both parents in the household. I've never had that. So there was jealousy, with my sister. There was a little resentment, you know, to my mom. It's like, was my dad not good enough, or what's up with you two? And then I got this guy trying to act like my dad, but I know where my dad is. So it's it's like, I'm not listening to you. If my mama want me to do that, she can ask me or she can call my dad. There was a lot of anger there, and no fault to him, but you're asking a 6-year-old to, okay, your dad's not here, but this guy's here. You got to accept him. And I just wasn't with that. Very early, I was very outspoken. If it was on my mind, it came out of my mouth.
And when did that change?
That changed. That changed when I started having kids. It kind of
So how long were you in the home with him though? How long were you all how long was he your stepfather and you all went home as a family?
um 9 years, from right before I turned 5 to right after my 14th birthday.
And in that time, how I know how you felt in regards to the family dynamics, but how was his relationship toward you? Well, how did he treat you? Was the respect there? Uh, did he nurture your feelings? How did that work?
As I got older, I felt when when I was a child, he was a little more mean than what he had to be with me, with the boys in the family in general. I just felt like, when it was time to be disciplined, he went overboard. And um as a kid, I really felt like he didn't like me. He hated basketball. I absolutely love it. He loved football. I absolutely hated it. Um, the only thing we really had in common when I was a child was, we liked Martin. We watched Martin a lot. We watched Fresh Prince a lot. You know,
Uh-huh.
when I turned, now I will say when I turned 10, maybe it was 11. I think I was 10. He became the athletic director for my YAA basketball team. So, as I got older, there were, you know, moments where he tried to be more involved in what it was I had going on or what I was trying to do.
Uh-huh.
But then, like I said, my dad is right over there, in the next neighborhood. He's not far. He's not far at all. So it took a while to really get over that. Like, all right, you know what? Like your dad's involved in your life, but he's not going to be present the way you want him to be. And my uncle used to always say, once you get older, you'll understand it. I know it's like Spanish to you right now. You really don't get why dad's not there. But when you get older and start having your own relationships and things of that nature, you will really understand it. And I just grew to appreciate the relationship that me and my dad do have. And then I really started to not resent my stepdad, really appreciate what it is that he's trying to do. Because when you think about it, it takes one hell of a man to accept a woman and her kid that he didn't.
Yes, it does.
You know what I'm saying? And we had that conversation. I told him we had that conversation when I was like 22 or 23. And I said, Pop, I call him Pops. I said, Pops, I'm really glad that you're alive to hear me say this. I don't want to be saying this to a tombstone because it took me
All right.
forever and a day to really understand what it is that you're trying to do for me and really appreciate it. So
That's growth.
yeah, yeah. It took me till I was 22 or 23 to really come to that, realization, but I'm glad I did. I knew when I became a teenager and started to deal with, girls myself, some days you want to pick up the phone and call your dad, but you know what? I got this guy right here that's really been trying to be a part of my life. Let me see what he has to say about this stuff, and we started to create that bond and get close. So,
That's
so when
awesome.
him and my mom divorced, I went right back to hating him all over again. Soon as I let you in, you leave, so
The relationship didn't have to stop, though, did it? I mean, uh, it-
that's the thing. It
because
didn't.
the husband and wife,
It didn't have to stop, but it did.
on whose part, yours or
A
his?
combination of both. He didn't reach
Okay.
out, so I didn't reach out. I had that thing growing up. Well, the saying is now, I'm a match energy.
Oh, yes. Yes. Same
I hate
energy.
it. I
Yes.
really hate that saying. I really hate that
Absolutely.
saying. Like two wrongs don't make a right. At the end of the day, just
Mhm.
because he's
Right.
not doing certain things, don't mean that I have to stop. But then it was like, I always heard, no matter how old you are, you're still the child in the situation. The parent is the one that should be reaching out more than the child. And the more and more I hear that, the more and more I'm like,
Do you
why?
still believe that? Do you still
No,
believe that?
I do not. I used to. I had to stop and think, it was like, well, him doing or not doing, doesn't mean that I stop.
That's right.
Everybody goes through things in life. And, sometimes I know me when I'm going through a lot of stuff at one time, I like to isolate myself. I got this thing of not wanting to be a burden with people. And, I have people in my life that constantly tell me whenever you're going through something, pick up the phone and call. I hear you saying it, but I just don't believe it. I don't know why. I don't know why.
Is that a Aryan thing or is that a man thing?
think it's Darian's interpretation of what a man is or what a man
Okay.
was. Well, I'm not going to show too much emotion. I don't want this person, and that person to think I'm soft.
When did we start matching ugly energy? Because it used to be a time where, especially with our elders, our seniors, stepfathers, uncles, grandfathers, um, even if they didn't call, we would call. I agree with you. That's changed over the years. People matching energy. And you saying that, I dislike that sentiment also, because just because you are feeling one way, my soul may not want me to feel that way, or I may not want to feel
Exactly.
that way, and it's going to make me feel worse to match
Right.
your energy.
Because that's not who I am as a person.
So, right, right. Have you guys spoken lately, or is it still where it was?
Um, it's actually our relationship is actually beautiful. It's a whole lot better. And I just said that to my mom earlier. I need to call Pops. I ain't talked to him in a while. And his mom just passed away too. So I know he's going through a lot with, planning the memorial service because she got cremated. So they're having a whole memorial service and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. And he was one of the siblings that was really involved, with his mom in her older years, her getting ill and not being able to care for herself as much. He stepped up and did a whole lot of
He was
things
one
too.
of
So
the.
I she passed away a few days after we buried a real close cousin of ours. So it's a lot of passing, going on this month. So in the midst of me trying to, see about my aunt and my cousin's wife and kids and, checking on the rest of the family and, dealing with the loss myself, um,
Right,
I just
right,
hadn't,
right.
um, I just haven't reached out to him yet, but we talk a whole lot more than we did since that conversation when I was 22, 23.
That's wonderful, because I believe we nurture and guide in different manners. Mothers and fathers nurture and guide in
Definitely.
different manners. That's just my belief. And in saying that, do you think one overshadows the other, or one's more beneficial to your man growth than the other?
We need both. We need both. The man can do, I don't think the man can do a woman's job as good as a woman and vice versa. We need both. We need both perspectives. We need both opinions. We need nurturing from both sides to become the best man that we can be.
But it is
It's
possible
definitely possible. It's
uh,
definitely possible.
to persevere.
But my opinion, I think we're at our absolute best when we get both. That takes a little bit that takes a little
I
bit off
believe.
of the mother because the mother doesn't have to play both roles. It takes a little bit off the father because the father may have a complex being so sensitive and I'm not the nurturer, I'm the provider, says society. And
Why does society get to tell us what's
I
right
have
and what's wrong
I
and
have
how to be?
absolutely no
Because
idea.
I'm they're more.
Us being 80s babies, I think that's just how I know for a fact.
Mhm.
Um, that's how my stepdad was raised because he didn't have his biological father either. I didn't find that out until my 20s when we had that conversation. So his stepdad was a lot more nurturing than, what my stepfather was in the beginning. I just think that that's that whole mentality of what a man should be. You know, the
Hmm.
the 60s and the 70s, the father just went to work. He just went to work. He came home. He got the big piece of chicken. He went to sleep. The mother did, all of the stuff around the house. So when us 80s babies are born, we're just catching all of that because this is what our fathers and stepfathers and our father figures, this is what they think a man is. So they instill that in us. We grow up, and I know in the beginning of my son's life, that's what I thought I had to be.
So making up your outside influences. Your outside. So if we're discussing outside influences on the manhood development, give me a percentage. We got so many influences. We got society, parents, we have peers, we have a whole lot of everything, components that make up who we are. Give me a percentage of your man makeup with 100%. Break it down into how much society, how much of you play into who you are, your mom, and so forth.
30% society, 30% parent or guardian influence, 30% of my fellow peers, 10% myself. Because my because my
We
mom
grow.
because my mom was so young, and then a lot of times when I got into stuff, she would resort to outside sources. So I got all these people coming to my face telling me how I should be doing this and how I should be doing that. And that got under my skin a lot. So that would go in one ear and out the other. And you go outside, you go to school, you're on the playground with a lot of kids who have stepfathers or are growing up in single parent households. And their outside influences, they bring that stuff to the playground or outside to the basketball court, wherever you at. It sounds good because you want to fit in. Oh, I'm gonna do what they doing because they're gonna think I'm cool. And I think that last 10% of, you know, just me, that was me looking in the mirror and coming to the realization. Some of them things that I learned, that's not me at all. And I have to be comfortable with who it is I see in the mirror.
And most definitely, we definitely have to be comfortable with what we see in a mirror, and especially with our men. We want you to walk down with confidence and
Yes, man.
know who you are. That's what we need to do. We need to for you to know who you are. And going back to your family dynamics, is there going to be a difference between the way you treat your sons versus your daughter? She going to get the same knowledge that you give your son because it's 2021. It's a whole different type of world out there. We are doing some of the things that
Hmm.
men are doing. You know, as with you being who you are and raising boys, will there be a difference? Are you going to tell her the same thing you tell them? I know there are some differences, but overall, will you
Absolutely.
guide them the same?
10 times out of 10, when we have a conversation, I have the conversation with the three of them. I may be looking at one child, but I'm talking to all three. I'm teaching my, I want to teach my boys how to be men. I want to teach my daughter how to be a woman and what man to look for. They're around the same age. The twins are in the twins are in the same grade, and Aiden is just a grade above them, but they're all at the same school. They see each other on a regular basis. I try to instill the same morals and values in the three of them. There was a time where, um, I'll be honest, I was a womanizer growing up. I thought that was cool. So I used to tell, I used
That's
to tell my
smart.
I used to tell my homies all the time, shoot, me and your son used to have these conversations all the time. When he had Zach, oh man, we gonna have him doing the same, BS that we was doing when we was growing up and this, that, and the third. And I'm so glad Zach went the opposite way. I am
I
so
am
glad
glad
Zach went the
also.
opposite way. I had to go to sell house. I didn't want to text it. I wanted him to look. I wanted to look him in his face when I told him this. I was like, hey, man, I'm so proud of you. The job you have done with your son, man. Like I am so proud of you, man. And I won't. I'll be fine if my boys grew up to be half of that. What we thought was cool growing up, it don't do
That's
nothing but get you in a lot of trouble. We both know, and I think my goal is, to make sure that they stay far away from the things that we had to encounter growing up. And it's the same with my daughter. I think, with baby girl, it's a little different. I'm okay with, showing her the sensitive side of daddy. And I understand how important it is for my sons as well. That tough exterior, you know, for a while, it scared me away from my stepfather and my uncles. They just had this real big, tough exterior, and I just felt like, when stuff happens, I can't go to them. And I don't want my sons feeling like that, so
But you can't afford to be sensitive. You can't have feelings. Um, and I totally agree with that. In my previous uh, interview, what I mainly hear from young men is that, I'm not going to let anybody think I'm soft. I'm not going to let anybody talk to me any old kind of way. And it doesn't matter what young man I talk to, even some older men. And I'm like, you all do cry. You all do have feelings. We're not asking you to burst out in tears, you know, just on GP. But what we are asking is give us a little insight, and that's what I'm looking for. It is a little insight, and your outlook has been insightful and very educational
I
for me.
appreciate that.
Very educational. And in closing this interview,
Yes, ma'am.
I have one more question for you. And that is not percentage wise. Tell me in your words, Darian, what's your man made of?
He's he's a provider, he's a protector, he's a counselor, he's an awesome listener, he's a friend, he's a father, he's he's present. He's present.
So, what kind of advice would you give Zach, your boys, any other boy that's looking at you for direction? What what would you tell them coming into themselves?
Get some Windex, clean the mirror, and stare. And once you're comfortable, with what it is that you see. Be the best version of that. It's okay to be whatever it is you see when you look in that mirror. The outside influences are simply that, outside influences. You're open to suggestions, but you don't have to confide in what it is society says you have to be. Your makeup of whatever a man is what you see when you look in the mirror. When you find that when you find that special person, be friends. Be friends. Enjoy life together. Write those dreams down and make those dreams goals and try to accomplish those first before you start a family. But if you do, it happens. It happens. In the midst of trying to accomplish those dreams, accomplish those goals, if you do have a child, love that baby. Love that baby with all of your heart and show that baby every single layer of you. Don't suppress nothing. That baby need to see you cry. That baby need to see you laugh. That baby need to hear those corny jokes. That baby needs to see every single layer that is going to help that baby become the best version of themselves, male or female. It doesn't matter. Get rid of the tough exterior because the energy that comes with that is all negative, and it's going to hinder everything that you're trying to do in life. Look in the mirror and
I
look
love
in the
it.
mirror,
I
be
love it.
comfortable with what it is staring back at you, and try to become the absolute best version of that. And save some money. Don't. I got a shoe, I got a shoe fetish. You
Tell
know,
them.
I love shoes, and every time I get a little extra money, I'm going to the mall to go try to get some shoes. That's just something I like. You know, get every other Jordan
Got
release.
it.
Don't get every single one. Put some money aside, and put some money aside for that baby. Make that baby's life as stress free as possible, and find every single reason. I'm learning this myself. Find every single reason to smile. Every single reason to smile.
Find that find that light. If you gotta look hard, if it's
Hold
only a
on to
pin
it
size
and
light,
try
hold
to,
on to it.
oh my goodness, hold on to it and try to hold on tight because this world don't care nothing about you. You are not going to get the type of love that you want on the outside. Stay close to family, love on your family as much as you can while you can. On one unfortunate day,
That's right.
somebody you love to death is not going to be here, and it's going to hurt. But the more memories that you can create, the easier it will become. Love on your family and be comfortable with your reflection. Whatever you see in the mirror, be comfortable with it and just try your damnness to be the best version.
You hear him, young man? Wipe off that mirror, look in it, and be comfortable with the version that you see. I love it. I love you, Darian. I love your mind. And thank you so much for being my guest today. I appreciate you. And I will definitely be
Anytime.
inviting you
Thank
back.
you so much. Thank you so much. My other mother, what I call you. Thank you so much for having me, for the influence that you have been in my life. I don't think I've ever told you that, but I've watched from a distance because I really didn't know how to express it, didn't know how you would receive it. But I've always looked at you as my other mother. I've looked at your four sons as my younger brothers. I love them wholeheartedly as you. I love you wholeheartedly as well. And again, I really appreciate you having me tonight. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. You
I
make my heart
appreciate that.
swell all the time. All the time. There you go, Billy. That concludes our episode for the week. Be sure to leave us a message or ask a question to be answered on our SMNQ Wednesdays. Tune in on 2/12/21 for episode 4, Father
Mm.
or No Father? That is the question.
Good night, Village.
Good night,
Good night,
Village.
Mama.
Good night, Darian.